Today is Thursday, March 10th, 2021. This is the Black Men's Book Club. Welcome. How are you today? Today,
I'm good, man. I hope everybody who's listening is good too.
right on, right on. That voice that you hear is returning again, Mr. D. Mr. D. I haven't actually introduced Mr. D in a while. So, just to give you a little of Mr. D's credentials, he is a former educator and a current drone operator. How's that drone thing going?
Oh, it's going well. Uh, there was a brand new drone that was released just this past week, and so I count myself as in the know because
Right.
I knew right where to go to see who bought it. I don't want to buy it until I get a chance to fly it and see how it is. It may change the world of drones.
Oh, like
Uh, you
that?
know, uh, yeah. It's an introductory product, like a somewhat finished prototype.
Oh,
I would say, but I suspect that new developments will occur. It might make good sense. Well, it might make good sense um, to not buy the first uh, version of it, But it's quite interesting. The technology is moving along, and tech ain't nothing but how you do it. That's all it is. So I'm not a fan of tech just for tech's sake, but for what purpose do you put it to?
right.
And it's quite exciting. It's fun to fly. It does a couple of things that are make it more accessible to more people. Problem is that I think there's going to be a lot of fools flying it around, and they're going to get themselves in trouble. You've got to have responsibility for all these things, and we'll have to see how it goes. But I'm excited about it.
That sounds awesome. I really identify with that thing you said about not buying the first model that comes out. Maybe wait a year or
Yeah,
two and then get the next one because what they're going to do is they're going to beta test. That's what that's called. And whenever they send out the first draft of any new equipment, whether it be drones or the PlayStation or anything like that, they send it out knowing that it has a bunch of bugs. You know what I mean? And they expect their users to complain about it, and then they're going to fix all those bugs, and then they're going to release a newer version of the same model a year later with all the bugs worked out.
well, true that. They probably did a lot of uh, um, testing, market testing, before they got to this point. But it's like you can't think of everything. So, as it's released out to people and people, experience different kinds of situations, more information will come back and, they'll refine it. You
Right.
see, I can't see it happening any other kind of way. Can you?
No, but that's the same reason they give prototypes to professionals and ask them to give them feedback so that they can
Yeah.
adjust it to people who use it.
Hmm.
Every piece of equipment works like that. I completely identify with that. And I think that should be true for anything. It's actually the reason I haven't been vaccinated yet. I'm not an anti-vaccine guy. I'm going to get the COVID vaccine at some point. I just don't want to be the first person.
And I do remember on the show we were telling people to get the vaccine now.
No, no, I'm going to
you,
get it.
you better explain that to the listening audience.
Oh no, I'm absolutely going to get it. But I also said on the show that because I work in such an isolated area, I'm by myself all day. That I can just kind of sit back and see what it does, and I haven't
Yeah.
heard of people having too many adverse reactions. Some people get like hives and stuff like that, but it goes away after like 2 or 3 days. Um, I haven't heard of anybody dying, not from any credible sources.
I think, I learned something in college, you know, and I think it's pretty solid, It runs on a theory that, you do a thing and you do it and you do it and you do it, and you kind of keep track of what you're doing, how it turned out, and kind of say what happens the most. That's why many episodes ago I said something about you got to quantify it.
Right.
I think that's quite real. The real experience is an experiment. It's an observation. It's an event. And then when you say, well, I'm going to do this, and let's see what happens.
Right.
I believe the theory and probability is that if you do it 30 times, you'll be close to what the real amount would be. It's a minimum of 30 times. And then as time goes on, you get more involved with doing more and more and more and more. You do it 100 times, you do it, 1,000 times, 1,000 times. You do it 10,000 times. You do it 1,000,000 times, 100,000 times, 1,000,000 times. And I believe that the number of people that have taken this vaccine within the United States is about 50-something million. For anybody who feels that they feel whatever they feel, they don't want to take it. You know what I mean? I would ask them at this point in time, well, if it came up like people were getting sick, or people were dying, do you think you would not hear about it? All this quantifying and scientific and observable, tangible stuff, you get to the point where at some point you just got to, come to some kind of conclusion, some kind of assumption, some kind of feeling. And I ask people who don't want to take it, I say, well, do you think that if it messed up, if somebody got adverse reaction, if they died, I'm not talking about headaches and sore arms and all that kind of stuff, but they had really, really, really serious, like life-threatening, fatal type reactions to this thing. Do you think that it would not hit the news? Ask yourself that question. I'm not saying that to you, but I'm saying that to whoever's listening and whoever listens.
Oh man,
forevermore.
That's so perfect.
And I base it on that. I'm a skeptic. I decided that I was going to wait, and I've waited, and we got 50-something million experiments. That's more experiments than used to. It take decades to do human experiments on many different things. Additives to foods and chemicals in the water that we to drink, to kill this, that, and the other, so that it doesn't kill us. We could go on and on and on and on through the history of, these kinds of reactions to new materials that, are in our bodies, aluminum in the toothpaste, all kinds of stuff, and there are many things that I don't want in my body. And the vaccine is one of them, but it's looking like there's additional pressures coming on now where people have to look at, if you're going back to work, do you have a record of having had the vaccine? I think people are going to be wearing masks for years to come.
Well, they should.
And so I'm hearing stuff about passports and travel, and it's a requirement for this, that, and the other. Like, oh man, this is getting kind of crazy here. I'm not an advocate of any of that, but I will say that I believe, as far as the safety, the risk of taking the vaccine, it seems like most people can handle it. And I'm going to continue to wait, but I'm not waiting too much longer, because pretty soon I may have to take it myself. Right. So it's kind of like the drone thing. You do your trial and error, and you tabulate, and you sum up, all the different trial and errors, and then you try to do an improvement.
I thought one thing that really stood out to me from the very beginning of when you started talking all the way through to the very end, and that is, at some point it's going to be time to nut up or shut up for all of us. For all of us. And you're right. How many more examples do you need? If people were dying en masse from this vaccination, we'd hear about it. But you don't hear about it from any credible sources, because it's not happening. So if it's not happening, it's probably safe. and it's definitely safer than the alternative.
Yeah. If you can't, and if that's not sufficient to whoever feels that it's not sufficient, then do your own testing. So you gotta call it the way you see. You got to make your choices. You got the freedom to do that. But I think it's kind of looking like this artificial RNA, which is a synthetic DNA material that's being put in the body, does seem to be, signaling the body, and that's the real hero of the story. It's your own body. It's your own antibodies, which recognize foreign substances like dust, and germs and bacteria and viruses and all kinds of things that we walk through every day.
Right.
They're constantly working in your body to be able to, destroy those things so that they pass out dead like waste, right. So that you can continue to live. So, study the process and then make an informed decision, everybody.
I couldn't agree more. You said something else that stuck out to me, and it actually stuck out to me because it's a segue. And you were talking about, people who don't want to take the vaccine. You would question them, or people who just in general believe in these word conspiracy theories. How you would approach them. Let me tell you about the experience my wife had today at the dentist's office. So we're recording this late, very late, and it's going to be a short episode. And the reason we're recording late is because my wife had this, late night, this late dentist appointment that I wasn't aware of until last minute. And so I had to play with that, and I had to cook dinner for the kids and everything. And Mom got home just after dinner time. But the reason she got home just after dinner time is because, mind you, she ended up not getting any work done on her teeth because we had insurance issue to work out. So let me preface this story by saying that she gets in the office, and last time she was there, she made a connection with the lady that works there, another assistant. You know what I mean? And they connected over something. They ended up talking for like 45 minutes, and I guess they felt like they were friends, or she felt like they were friends. So today, when my wife went in there, although she didn't get her teeth done, she was in there for 2.5 hours because this lady pulled her into the office and they just started talking. And now this is a black lady assistant, right? And this is her job she's at, mind you. She gets into telling my wife because my wife mentions to her something about how she kind of enjoys researching conspiracy theories in this little side conversation. And so this lady goes into talking about all the things that she believes in, or not the things that she believes in, but these are just the things that comes out in this conversation that my wife is telling me about. And I'm not doing it justice. I'm paraphrasing. Trump is not racist. And something to the effect of he's stopping a bunch of businesses from doing something right now. And he's exposing a bunch of stuff right now. What else did she say? It was all like it wasn't even QAnon stuff. It was all just weird conspiracy theory stuff. And she got mad when my wife was like, "Oh yeah, I know that conspiracy theory." She was like, "No, I don't deal in conspiracy theories. I deal in facts." And she really got mad defending it. It was crazy. I was captivated when she was telling me the story. It took me about 10 extra minutes to call you while she was telling me, because I'm like, "What's wrong?" Oh man, she's one of them, and she's a black lady. Oh man.
What do you do behind all of that?
She defended storming the Capitol in that talk. She was just all kinds of things. I was like, all right, with that one, there's really no place you can go. She needs professional help. You know what I mean? It's not up to us to walk around having to educate every one of these people we see. This is literally half of the population that believes in these things.
Yeah. I understand.
I would spend all day with it. I really would, especially the way people come at me on my social media. Oh,
You know, well, it's like you got to learn how to work with people, I guess.
right. So, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's how our weeks have been. All right. So, what's
Yeah.
you got to feel good for me before we get into all this?
I had several, but I can't really think of one that I want to share. You know, there's several. Nothing sticks out at me, but I do know that, you know, the world is moving. Well, okay, I tell you what, there is one. I just learned about something. So, you know, learning has always been fun, you know, something new, something I hadn't heard about, but it relates to something else that I had learned maybe about, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, you know.
Okay.
There's a guy on the radio, and he's a lawyer in Britain somewhere, and he is talking to people about developing a legal standard for what he calls ecocide. You know, and I'm like, oh, well, you know, side is like insecticide, homicide, et cetera, fratricide. You know, the idea of side in Latin is, you know, like killing, right?
Right.
So ecocide is like the killing of the ecosystem, like ecology. And he's trying to develop a standard. And he went through a lot of history about, you know, the international law as outgrowth of World War II. You know, the Nazi thing with the Jews, extermination of the Jews, you know, all the other killing that took place. You know, it's like certain international standards apply, you know. I mean, we could go on, but I would urge anyone who's interested to just look it up. You know, it's like we talk about these things, you know, but it's like you got to look it up for yourself, you know, and become informed as to whatever degree that you want it to be. So that's my good feel story.
Right.
My good feel story.
Right on.
You know, the idea is that I learned something new, and it's quite exciting. And it relates to something else that I knew, you know, and that brings me even greater happiness and joy, because there is something that I saw on TV called Our Strange Rock. Will Smith is narrating, and you know, he does it in a way that I think is you know, very accessible for many people that, you know, that are not particularly scientific and what have you. It's kind of streetsy, you know, common sensey and all that. But he's talking with, and they're interviewing astronauts that have been on the International Space Station and what they observe flying around. You know, some of them were up there for, you know, single number of days, and some up there for double number of days. I think there's one guy up there for a triple number of days, and that's like over 100 days, you know, and it's absolutely incredible. And from that vantage point, you know, you can see stuff that you can't see any other way. And it seems to run parallel to what this guy is saying. So I could go on, but, you know, time is short, and I just can't. I want to leave this with our listening audience.
Right on.
Who needs who more? You know, do you need the planet, or does the planet need you? See, if you ask that question, you come up with your own decision about it. My personal opinion is that we need the planet more than the planet needs us. That puts us at the disadvantage. You know, this guy is reflecting on something that I've known, having gone out into the world and traveled and seen some, you know, wide open spaces and stuff. You know, you kind of see how everything kind of works together. You know, the planet is, you know, you get the sense of like, it's not just like rocks, man. You know, it's like it's alive. It's a system of things all interacting with each other. There's been research about trees communicating with each other through microorganisms. Yeah, I'm like, what? Through the root system of the trees, and the trees tell, well, this tree needs more water than the other tree, and what, and the rocks doing things. And listen, ecocide sounds to me like a pretty good way of trying to bring, save the planet, ecology, and all those different kinds of things, to the forefront of the mind. And I hope he is successful in developing laws that the entire world, not just like industrial nations telling non-industrial nations that they need to be natural and organic. It's like the whole planet needs to be natural and organic. So that human beings can live and coexist with a living planet. I'll stop there. I'll leave it there.
I want to kind of piggyback on something you said, and I'll make this really quick. Have you ever heard of Panda?
Sure.
You know what Panda is?
Panda, right? Panda?
No, Pando with the O on the end.
Oh, Pando. No, school me.
Okay. Pando is the world's largest living organism. People once thought that it was a forest, but it's not a forest. It's in Utah. And it's one tree that has cloned itself so many times and has a connected root structure that it appears to be a forest, and it's all one living organism.
Actually, I some strange familiarity. I think I've heard about that. Something about the root system spread.
Yep, it's the root system that connects it all. It's all one large organism. Now, here's the sad part. Pando is dying. And it's not necessarily due to humans, but climate change is definitely not helping. It's mostly dying because of mule deer.
Because of what?
Mule deer. They keep eating the seeds. See, the way Pando grows is it drops its seeds pretty close to itself so that the trees can grow and connect, so that the roots from the new tree can grow and connect. And the spores from it, the mule deer have multiplied in that area so much that they're eating the spores before they can sink into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So Pando's dying, but like I said, climate change is definitely accelerating it, and that much we are responsible for. So that was just a little nugget I threw out there for the listening audience.
Yeah, there's something else for our listeners to check up on. My thought is that it won't die. Something else will take its place. My mom and dad used to say, "Nature abhors a vacuum."
Yes.
And it always fills it in. And it's going to take out the disease, man. If men are creating this, then men are the ones that are out. The planet's been around a lot longer than men have been, and it's found a way to be able to deal with all this different stuff that it's done. If men don't come to harmony and balance with the planet, then they're in trouble.
You can make energy, but you cannot destroy energy. You can only transfer energy from one type of energy into another.
Yeah.
Same concept. All right. I'm going to give you a quick feel-good story, and then we're going to get into our discussion for the day. My quick feel-good story is my hairline. I have a hairline. Can you Can you please describe in as much detail as possible my hairline to our listening audience, including the bald spot in the back of my
head? It's not bald anymore.
Oh, you seen the pictures?
Yeah.
Okay. No. I was talking about the old hairline.
Oh, the old one. Well, it was bald. Yes. You had a receding. I guess you could call it receding hairline, right?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
I knew that I was going to go bald young. I'm only 35 years old, but I knew I was going to go bald young as early as the second grade. My teacher looked at me one day. We were talking about genetics, and she was trying to give us this brief, second grade discussion on genetics, and she was like, "Hey, Whittle, we're looking at hairlines, and that's what it was." And
Yeah.
she was talking about the Whittles Peak in particular because I had a big Whittles Peak, not Eddie Munster big, but noticeable. And she looked at me straight up and was like, "Oh, you're gonna go bald young." It's like, what? Yeah, because people with Whittles Peaks, and it's in their genetics, they go bald young. I was like, "Oh, damn."
Uh-huh.
Well, that's true. But thankfully, my wife went to school for hair, barbering, and then
Yeah.
she hooked up with this really really popular barber out of Atlanta, Mickey the Barber, and she used to be based here out of LA. She was like a barber for the stars for a while, and Mickey the Barber kind of stopped barbering because she got into doing these man units. And what a man unit is where, how like women like glue on hair.
Yeah.
Well, it's a way to glue on hair for men. So what she did was she shaved my head bald, all the part that was messed up and receding, all the way through to the back by the bald spot, and she just glued new hair on the top and then styled it. I mean, but there's a way to do it. She went to Mickey the Barber's classes and learned this whole technique, and I got to say, it looks super professional. So
that's a feel good story.
I shouldn't say it looks super professional because she is a professional. So I don't want to shit on her, for lack of a better word. But what I will say is, I look honestly about 15 years younger. I looked at myself and I was shocked. And it looks great. So we're selling it to anybody who wants one.
Mm-hmm. So you're gonna have to treat her right. She's definitely the definition of a helpmate. She helped you with something that made you feel good. Right. That's a feel good story, man.
It is, and I've never really been the type of person. I've never cared about my hair too much because I've always been, like, hey, if you want to go. I don't care.
Yeah.
But if there's an alternative, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So now, what are we talking about for the rest of the day? Oh,
well, we're talking about this. Oh, okay.
That's my feel good. Okay, now what are we talking about?
Okay. We're talking about the destruction of Black civilization, great issues of a race from 4,500 BC to 2000 AD by Chancellor Williams. And those that have been with us through this journey know that we call him Dr. Chancellor Williams because doctors teach. Like as in the word doctrine, that's what it means. It's a teaching. And, he has laid some thoughts down that are quite significant. I believe they are quite empowering. And they're certainly food for thought. So we've gone through the first half. We talked about, Africa as having a government, a constitution, a unifying theme, like all over the planet. The destruction wasn't only, like many might say, the Europeans came in, or he extends it to the Asians and, the Arabs and all that, but there were internal destruction as well, internal factors between them as peoples, different groups of people. But perhaps the biggest thing, and that's one of the notes that I think I made, was, the climatic changes. He talks about something that I know about, and that kind of relates to what we were saying before about the planet. If we look at the Sahara Desert is bigger than the continental United States. So, put that in perspective. You could take the whole United States and put it inside the Sahara Desert with room left over. And many, many, many different sources have said that once upon a time, it wasn't desert.
Yeah, it was green.
He alludes to that in the book as well. And we're trying to wrap this up because we need people to read the book themselves. It's not us telling them what to do, but it's us, trying to, analyze the book and examine it a little bit, and then, people can read it for themselves and draw their own conclusions.
I agree. I've always wondered, talking about what you just said, or thinking about what you just said, rather, how much history is lost under those sand dunes. I've always wondered that.
So, say that again. Say it again.
I've just always wondered how much history is lost under those sand dunes.
Oh, a lot, I think, but I can't worry about it. We know what we know, we don't know what we don't know, so, I think there's a lot of truth to that, but let's pick out a few things in the book to see, see how we're going to, it took us all these weeks, all these hours, literally, to go through the first half of the book, but it's an ambitious project to try to sum it up. I was kind of thinking that if I read some of the titles, that might be a way. Like, for example, on page 197, one of the titles, like the chapter, the paragraph title, the section title is White Scholars as Authorities. Now, I'm not going to read from that chapter, but that's very intriguing. Then there's another chapter, section of the same chapter in the book. Page 183, there's the Saharan tragedy, which is what we just mentioned, very, very briefly. He gives a number of pages to that. Let me leave it at that because I'm sure you got some as well.
No. I actually wanted to ask you if you would go ahead and pick out the passage and read one. I know you had some you wanted to read.
Oh, well, which passage to read? I guess because we've talked about the Saharan, the change that took place in the Saharan desert and how it fled people. Let me see if I can find a section where he kind of describes that a little bit quite effectively. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can find it. Because I didn't mark it down directly, like the specific sentences, but I did take a look at the...
Okay. Well, and I'll go ahead and read one. And mine starts on page 213. Their political system. Okay. Okay. Their political system, high democratic, was unsurpassed by any state anywhere in the world. That system was developed by Africans. The family was the smallest socio-economic political unit. The extended family council, for example, settled all cases involving offenses by members which affected only the family or were not serious enough to be carried to the village court. Bad behavior by one member was a reflection on the rest of the family. The Western creed of fierce individualism had no place in the society. What one did was either a credit to his family or a dishonor. The village council was the next political unit which elected headman and a council of elders. The elders were the representatives of the various family sections or wards that made up the village. The village council was the center of authority, subject to the will of the community. The districts were the next and larger divisions, varying in size and having many villages and towns. The district Nava, the chief, was a very important official. Any number of districts made up the provinces and kingdoms for which formed the nation. The great Maasai, plural for Nava, were elected by their respective councils and subject to their will. This latter fact was generally well disguised by ceremonial phraseology, ritual, and autocratic sounding decrees from the throne. Indeed, it was a general practice for both the council ministers and the people to proclaim that the Mogul Naba has all power, is the most powerful king, in quotes, in which the world he rules, unquote. These fictions seem to be one of the delights of our people. For not only did these same fantastic claims help to make the Wagadugu the Mogonaba, indeed, during the periods um, African societies were most democratic, every effort seems to have been made to make it appear that the supreme power was exercised by by the rulers, never by the people. Upon the death or removal of the Mogonaba, for example, there was a constitutional fiction that his successor must be chosen by the Odinaba, the prime minister, and the Odinaba made the public proclamation with all ceremonial pomp and splendor, ostentation befitting one charged with such an awesome responsibility that naming the next emperor, yet everyone knew very well that the Odinaba was merely announcing an election that had already been made by the councils of state. Here we go. In addition to these councils on various local levels, the Maasai developed another way of controlling the behavior of rulers. This was the practice of moving from one unsatisfactory village or district to another more favorable one. Whole villages might up and move from one district to another. No district chief could afford this direct reflection on his ability to quote unquote keep the people. The most important of his inauguration oaths, it is also tended to undermine the economy of his area. This is the last paragraph. The question of absolutism in traditional Africa. I'm sorry. Let me explain before I read this paragraph. I highlighted this part specifically because I wanted you guys to pay attention to this. The question of absolutism in traditional Africa is interesting because it so often means the very opposite of what is understood by the term in Asia and in the West. In 7 different societies covered in my field of studies in different regions, all declared that their traditional kings had, quote unquote, absolute powers as rulers. Follow-up analysis revealed that what was meant by this was that the chiefs or kings had, quote unquote, absolute power to carry out the clearly understood will of the people, which of course is a far cry from the self-assumed absolutism. There was no absolutism in Western terms. Even the great Shaka of the great Zulu Empire complained because the council failed to check him in his excesses. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's a lot right there. So I don't know. I guess the best thing to say is, well, here, is this government? Is this politics? I mean, what is this socialism? Is this African democracy? How do you summarize this form of ruling? I guess kingdom. I don't know. What do you say?
I would call it. See, it was the kingdom. It's how the kingdom worked, but it was just structured all the way down to the lowest form. So I guess you would have to call it African democracy.
Yeah, democracy, and this is before the Greeks, the Romans, have any sense of when this might have been occurring?
This is the Maasai that he's talking about specifically in this chapter. So, I don't see any dates in this chapter. I think he's just talking about the Maasai States.
Okay.
This is far after the what you call it, what you were talking about, the Greeks and Romans and whatnot. This is what he's talking about here, or at least in the paragraph prior to this. He's mentioning the chapter or the year 1492.
Oh, so this was before the Europeans came in and began to influence, with
To civilize
Africa
them
with imperialism and so forth.
before they civilized them.
Well, I'm not, I'm not even going to use that word. They certainly thought so.
Yes, they did.
And when I listen to what Meghan and Harry are talking about with Oprah, I'm like, how civilized is that? I mean, I hope our listening audience has heard, and if they haven't, it's easy enough to find because the stuff has hit the fan. And, it's clear cut what their agenda was, and yet they want to consider themselves to be the royal family, the monarchs, the kings of, not only Britain, but the whole Commonwealth,
Yeah.
Which includes many of those colonial and imperial, subjects, that belong to all those other countries that, the British, kind of like laid claim to. But this seems to be indicating that the people had a system before they got there. So they were already, in fact, civilized. And because that's the word civilized, that's what civil means. It's your relationship with other people in a society. So they can say whatever they want, but I think Chancellor is busy indicating that, they already had it going on. And it sounds to me like it was better.
The Meghan and Harry situation, it's a big blah sandwich to me. Honestly, it's a huge blah sandwich to me. When when she decided to marry that guy, and they made such a big deal over it, then I thought that this was going to happen all the way back then. I said it out loud. I made a video about it. Like, but why are they making the big deal over this? First off, what happens with the royal family is not news. It's not news to me that they're racist. This is the same monarchy that took over the entire world. It's just not a surprise to me. And I made a video like, okay, but they're letting the black person into the family now. First off, and I'm not even going to get into talking anything about Meghan Markle or Harry personally, but just that family. I never thought that this was going to work out. Never, not once.
Well, it looks like your thoughts have proven to be correct. I'm not second guessing them. In fact, that's all I'm going to say about them. I applaud the guy. He's standing up for his wife. Like if he loves her, he's got to stand up for her. And they've split from
about the situation.
Yeah, I kind of applaud him for that. If she wants to, if that's her man and they're making it, then who am I to say anything about it? But like you, I think did you? I mean, what did you think was going to happen, or what did you hope was going to happen? Suffice it to say that this is the kind of attitude of people that want to call themselves the rulers of brown people. But they're inbreeding and they're marrying amongst themselves and their cousins and all the rest of that stuff. And so no brown people can be part of their family. What's that? Is that the bloodline? The royal bloodline? Good Lord, man. I mean,
you want to know?
I think it speaks for itself.
You want to know I did a TikTok video earlier today. Now, we have not talked about this at all, but I did a TikTok video earlier today, and I made my thoughts about this because too many people were talking about it, and I'm like, man, you know what? We had a whole war to make sure that we would not have to give a shit what the royal family did or said anymore. And we won that war. Yet we still have this fascination with the royals. None of this is news. It's ridiculous. It's part of the media distraction machine. And really, if you want to boil the whole thing down to the truth, this whole beef between Harry and the royal family all boils down to he's not fucking somebody that he's related to. That I did that. I said that in my video earlier. So that's why
Okay.
I was like, "Wow, that's so on the nose that you said that."
Okay. Well, that's one way to boil it down. Um, in that respect, I think I agree with you. Um, I guess my take on it is that here it is, like just a couple of days ago. Now there's a whole bunch of this stuff going on about this mixed racial couple and the children that God has given them. And somehow she can't be royal because what, and they make up the thing. So here you are talking about a form of government that seemed to work from the top down, the bottom up, and all in between, which is an invention that African people did.
Yes.
And I applaud Chancellor Williams for bringing that to our attention. And I suggest that it gives us as Black people, not only in the United States, but the world over, something to think about, because it's part of our heritage, and we need to claim it.
I agree. All right. Did you have a passage you want to read?
Well, yeah, I think I did find something because I guess it's good because, you talked about something that I would think would either be government or politics, and here I'm talking about something that's beyond man. It's climatic, which relates to my original thought about, the ecology of the planet is happening no matter what we do. It's beyond our capability. And we can do all the economic and financial and political and all the other stuff that we do, man, but the planet is showing, that it's the controlling factor. So what I will do is I will read a few paragraphs from this particular section. Is on page 186. This is under what's called the Saharan tragedy. It says that we return to the Sahara again, for here is where the first Black migrations began before written history. Sahara, or wasteland, indicates what it became, not what it was. It was the largest northern region of Balad Sudan. That's BILAD, new word, AS, new word, SUDAN, pardon me, which means land of the Blacks. Now, viewing this vast area for about at least 5,000 years, it is difficult to believe that it was not forever thus. But the Sahara, far bigger than the United States, was once a land of lakes, rivers, forests, green fields, farms, villages, towns, cities. Wildlife was abundant. Cattle grazed in the meadows, horse-drawn chariots sped over the highways. It was a great land, yet only a part of an even greater Black world. Now, I could go on, but the idea is that maybe another paragraph will suffice. Then I'll make a quick comment. It says, we have already noted that this Black African world had been under relentless pressures from the seacoast by invading whites from the earliest times. And he names Hebrews, Phoenicians, Mongols, Arabs, Berbers, Greeks, Romans, et al. And for folks that don't know that, that's E-T, new word, A-L, et al. That's like, and so on. It was also pointed out that it is not without significance that even today, most of the invading occupy the same areas where they first came in, the sea coast. Now, I could go on, man. He does pages, but again, I'm urging people to read it. My thought is that I mentioned something about something I saw on TV. I mentioned something about ecocide that I heard on the radio, and here Chancellor Williams talking about something And when I first read this book many years ago, I was always intrigued by that. Now I've been to Africa and I've seen it. I've been in the Sahara Desert. I've seen it. And I know what I felt. And, lived as I was there. I met some people. Understood a little bit about the culture. It was quite humbling. But a desert the size of the United States, man, is really hard to fathom.
Yeah.
Looking at Our Strange Rock, it's like scientific. They showed photographs of a dust storm that took place not in the Sahara, but further down in the other desert, the one that's farther down. It's not as big, but nonetheless, it is a desert. And, at first they're looking at it and it looked like a dust storm, but, they fly around in another 90 minutes. Ooh, it's getting bigger, It was started over on the east coast of Africa and it's going west and it goes over the entire continent. And then it starts going over the Atlantic Ocean.
So Brazil and turns into the Amazon.
Boom. It's like the thing that's interesting about it is that the diatoms, which are the skeletons left of sea creatures that fell down to the floor of the ocean, was now in the desert being stirred up by the wind and being blown halfway across the planet. It seems to me that I put all these things together, and I read the paragraphs that I just read as kind of like it's one big organism, but it shows the immense climatic change that took place in Africa. And I would ask anybody, do they think they could deal with such a huge climate change? From savanna, lakes, water, to like bone dry. People had to split. And and what Chancellor's saying, later on in that particular paragraph is that he thinks they made a fatal mistake because many of them went into the interior. They didn't go out to the coast. That left the coast vulnerable to, quote, invaders, unquote. And he named some of them. Having been to Africa, I've seen it to this day. That's how the British and the Portuguese and the French and, the Arabs and the Asians and all these other non-black people got into the continent and grabbed hold of the continent. Look at it this way, and then I'll rest my case. Many non-African people control the coastlines, the sea coasts, the ports, so the lifeblood of the country when it goes out or when it comes in, as in trade, economics, and so forth. Natural resources, the tin, the uranium, the ebony wood, the oil, and on and on and on and on and on. Africa has succumbed to a pillaging and a raping, because of this climatic change and their own social dysfunction and the invaders that came in and imposed upon them, slavery, imperialism, colonialism, and so on. I rest my case on that.
I mean, we talked about the history and the modern day of Ethiopia, and the war between the constant warring between Ethiopia and Eritrea. And Eritrea was part of Ethiopia until the Ethiopians gave the Italians the control of their coastline, and the Italians grew so much that they started their own country, which became Eritrea. And that was in 1948. Those all of those countries are relatively modern. All of them, all of those borders, just like all of the borders.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot. Okay,
yeah, it truly is.
And it's a long one. It's a long one. It's twice as long as the first one I read, but it's important, very important for our modern day and for people to hear. So this is starting at the bottom of page 301. A view from
301. Okay.
The bottom paragraph. Those Negroes who are frantically fighting to escape from the African race by way of integration, in quotes, and amalgamation.
Can I stop you for a second? Because I think it might be important for you to read the title, the section title, up at the top. Just
A view from the bridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Those Negroes who are so frantically fighting to escape from the African race by way of integration, in quotes, and amalgamation will continue to meet everlasting and universal opposition from the whites. The Negro drive to be with the whites in every situation is equaled by the white determination to prevent it. Yet, the whites must truly feel a deep sense of pride in seeing in seeing this Negro leadership so clearly validating their own belief in white superiority. Their pretended quote unquote quality education objective actually collapses under the wheels of buses for quote unquote racial balance. They are proclaiming to all the world that regardless of general desegregation in any all black or predominantly black population, the blacks themselves are utterly incapable of achieving or maintaining high standards of excellence in education or indeed anything else. Here we have within the race the intolerable situation of an anti-black group proclaiming the race's inherent inferiority more effectively than the whites ever could, precisely because of this group regarded as quote unquote black. Furthermore, and even of greater importance, the amalgamationist Negroes generally hold most of the administrative and key teaching posts in educational systems. Through sheer indifference, therefore, they can block the development of the quality education in black schools while at the same time sending their own children to white private schools. Their remaining interest in the black schools is the money derived from their superiority and teaching positions. Meanwhile, black students in the so-called integrated schools and colleges throughout the United States continue to tell the world that they are as segregated within as they were without. Far from being accepted, daily insults of various kinds occur inside the classrooms, in halls, and on the outside. When fights break out, as they inevitably do, and the police are called in, they generally arrest the black students, not the white student, no matter who started the trouble. A press report on April 15th, 1972 simply read, quote, "During the recess hour, a black male student was called an offensive name by two white boys and pushed against the wall. A general fight broke out between the black and the white students. Police were called. 13 black students were arrested and jailed." Unquote. Now, of course, all of this is public information and is news to no one. But some of the salient facts that seem to stand out clearly are as follows. 1. White America is definitely and unalterably opposed to the integration and amalgamation of the two races. 2. Black America, the masses, are equally opposed to the integration and amalgamation of the two races. 3. The drive for more and more amalgamation is and always has been spearheaded by those quote-unquote coloreds who maintain a separatist society within the black race and who are not and never have been identified with the black masses. 4. Since everybody knows that there are millions of light-skinned members of the race, some as white as any Caucasian, who are as African in spirit and are devoted to the race as anyone else, The crucial question is, how long will this other white-oriented group be allowed to block the real progress of the race? 5. Those who seek and hope for admittance into white society should not be criticized or condemned. As previously stated, it is an individual's matter of choice and is both a natural and right if their quote unquote blood call is to the white race rather than to black. But they cannot be allowed to use their imposed leadership positions to browbeat all black Americans into the line of march towards the white society per se, and thus towards the ultimate extinction of blacks as such in this country. It is along this line against their benign genocide that the real battle for survival as a distinct people must be fought. 6. The drive for quote-unquote integration is a most damnable on one score alone. It is a deliberate and stepped-up attack on the most significant aspects of the Black Revolution of the 60s. That revolt was the reversal in the psychology of the race, a quest for its lost manhood by first emancipating the mind from the bondage over Caucasianization, and to establish forever the real basis for equality with the rest of mankind from the rediscovered pages of history that was supposed to be quote unquote lost because it reveals a long line of giants unsurpassed by any people on earth. Negro integrationists are hostile to the Black Revolution and aim to defeat its main aims by forcing the black children and youth of the nation more directly under the quote-unquote white education. Once again, as in slavery, they will be cut off not only from the history of their race, but they will also be cut off from the knowledge of all other fields in which blacks have excelled, and from which comes the inspiration to go forth and to do likewise. I'm sorry, that was in quotes. Go forth and do likewise. The great mental revolution among the blacks that eventuates in more and more respect and a new sense of manhood and self-worth. All this alarms the Negro integrationists, and they are resolved to defeat it by keeping blacks firmly under the mind control of white institutions. 7. They are absolutely right about the general lack of quality education in black schools, the very schools in which they are the principal and supervisors and teachers. But their minds and interests are elsewhere. Ghetto children are unteachable, they assure themselves, and they are equally misguided principals and teachers of all kinds will fight to the death a Clark or any other plan that is expressly designed to improve the teaching and learning processes in black schools. The very idea of quote-unquote community control, because it presents the possibility of that irate parents might demand the removal of the merely job-holding and indifferent principals and teachers. 8. The millions of Africans of mixed blood who have always been steadfast and devoted to the race know that when the white man gives them preferential status above the quote-unquote unmixed, but always below himself, he does so to maintain the myth of superior quote-unquote white blood. Their redemption from the sin of African blood is proportionate to the amount of quote-unquote white blood in their veins. Indeed, if one is light enough or near white, he may even be appointed to the secretary of a department of the U.S. government and a member of the president's cabinet and still not equal. Furthermore, white America has found that their purposes were served best by classifying quote-unquote Negro all persons with any amount of African blood, no matter how small. This obvious injustice has never been openly challenged, even by those directly affected, and who bitterly resent being so classified. And that's where I'll end that one.
Okay. Well, hey, man, what can I say? That's a lot. I think for our listening audience, you might want to try to summarize that a little bit, because that's a lot.
It was, and I know it was a lot, but I couldn't start it without finishing it. You know what I mean? Because it's a list.
Yeah, I think I know why you might. Okay, go ahead.
There was a lot of things that came to mind when I read that. Working backwards, we can start by talking about Meghan Markle. Because we already did talk about Meghan Markle, but in rereading that last part, it came back to mind where he was talking about any amount of black blood, or the millions of Africans of mixed blood who have always been steadfast and devoted to the race now know when the white man gives them preferential treatment, status above the unmixed, but always below himself, he does so to maintain the myth of superior white blood, which is what she threatened, their superior white blood. Also, their redemption from the sin of African blood is proportionate to the amount of white blood in their veins. Indeed, if one is light enough or near white, he may even be appointed to the Secretary of Department of the U.S. and the President's Cabinet. Okay, yeah, and that's the part that made me think about her, is how she was threatening their superior pure white blood. Then the one before that is where they were talking about principals and teachers. Now, granted, this book was written in 1970, I want to say. So this is before Barack Obama. So to the listeners who are saying, oh, well, we have the black president. Yes, we have had a black president since the book was written. You can kind of say so. So working backwards, he mentioned the schools thing, and I thought that was so on the nose, and that's something that we even deal with in the modern day. None of the stuff that he talks about in this book has really changed. He talks about Candace Owens came to mind when I was listening to this, because he's talking about these Negroes who they just have to be part of white society, and they have to drag you along with it. If that's what you want to do it. By all means, bleach your skin. There's plenty of people who do it. Don't drag us all along for the ride. We don't have to believe in your nonsense. Who else came to mind when I was reading this? There was one. I'm trying to look for the exact part, and I did not color code my book today. The drive for the amalgamation is created by. Oh, this one I thought was an important one as well. Number 4, since everyone knows that there are millions of light-skinned members of the race, some as white as any Caucasian, who are African in spirit and devoted to the race as anyone else, is a crucial question is how long will this other white-oriented group be allowed to block the real progress of the race? That is something that I wanted to ask you about. There's this whole light skin, dark skin thing going on, and you are a nice in between color. You've got a nice not too dark color, not too dark to be a threat. And me, I'm jet black, or not jet black, but I'm pretty close to it. Like I'm like bad credit black. And my kids are light skinned. My kids are real light skinned. In fact, my oldest son, who you have not seen, you can't even tell he's black. He's 100% passing Latino. Where do you lie? I know you're not, you don't have any bigoted tendencies, but where do you lie on this whole light skin, dark skin thing? Because there's a lot of toxicity out there about that.
Okay. Where do I lie on it?
Let me be more specific.
I don't know, man. I think the easiest way. Yeah. I think the easiest thing for me to say is that I, as a brown skinned man, am a brown skinned man. I've been to Africa. I've had a chance to see the cultures. I've been to Europe. I've had a chance. I've been all over the United States. I've had a chance to see those cultures. The skin color is a misnomer for me. It's a big fake out.
Right.
I do know of, the idea that, the king and the queen of one kingdom and another kingdom, the interracial marriages between, Europeans and Africans, because it brought the nations together. I think wise people don't really spend a lot of time on this color thing, because that's just the skin. That's just the skin.
Right.
You can't all be black. You can't all be white. So for me, it's a non-issue. I think that's what I want to say. It's not something that I'm interested in really dealing with as a consequential part of, trying to understand black culture. Black folks are the original people.
Right.
So like all these other things are evolutions from that. You see?
Right.
I've been around a lot of white folks in my life, but I've been around a lot of black folks in my life. I know some white folks that are dogs, but I know some black folks that are dogs. The skin color is not a sufficient description for me to be able to determine, the kind of person that they are. I'll say this. I remember being in England and meeting a redhead, white as she could be. I also met a Nigerian princess who was going to school in England. Both of those women were beautiful.
Right.
They were helpful. They were kind. They were considerate. You know what I mean? I've been to places where people of a different skin color, a different culture, a different language, a different religion, helped me because I needed help. So that's my story. Having traveled, I can say that. I can also talk about the redneck white boy that stopped me when I was driving through Texas. I did 56 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone. They wanted to give me a ticket, and then they follow me, drive up to some trailer in the middle of nowhere, with a big head kid behind the door, talk about the court's in session. And now because I've done something that was, an infraction of the law, I got to give him, $250. If I don't, I go to jail. You see? So, the color thing is not something that, is really a big issue to me, but I do understand, and I have felt, the effects of it, for people that it is important to. So I hope that's not too long an answer. And to add to that, I would say that not too far from that same page, I did mark out this thing about, it's on page 310, the black world at the crossroads. That's on page 310. And it says, one of the most troublesome facts in the study of history over the very long periods of time, such as several centuries, is that a truth may slowly emerge, period after period, until it clearly forms itself into a truth impregnable. And it goes on, and on. And then, towards the end of that particular paragraph, it says, yet that truth may be so repugnant, so utterly void of any rational or intelligent reason for its existence, that hardly any historian would wish to state it in his work. And then they go on to say, and this is the point I'm trying to get to, it says, yet I did just that when I wrote that, quote, the whites are the implacable foe, the traditional and everlasting enemy of the blacks, unquote. It says the compelling reason for publicly putting this declaration in its historical context is clear. The necessary re-education of blacks and a possible solution of racial crisis can begin, strangely enough, only when blacks fully realize this central fact in their lives. The white man is their bitter enemy. And it goes on.
Can you say the last one again, though?
Say it again?
You say the last one again?
Oh, the last part. That's in the second paragraph on the bottom of page 310. It says, the white man is their bitter enemy.
Okay, that's just the part. I just want to hear you say it again.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at January 6th, that just happened recently, we kind of see where that's going. If we look at all the BS that was shot out of the mouth of Trump and all of those people that follow him, and they still insist on all of that, we still see the emergence of the same thing. I mean, we're the black folks that live in the mouth of the beast here in America. We are the African Americans here, and we have to live this stuff every day, So I understand all of that. But for me, personally, I understand who I am. And I believe that because I've had travel experiences, cultural experiences, and so on and so on. And I've had, some knowledge and, some successes and failures. I've met a lot of people. You know what I mean? I was raised up around a lot of people with very broad views. I see it as a fake out, and it'll be put into place. I've seen black folks that are mean and evil, destroying themselves and their community, and I've seen white folks do the same thing. Either one of them, is the bad guy as far as I'm personally concerned. I don't feel, black folks are, like righteous just because they're black. I don't feel that white people are white just because they're white, or any other stereotypical conclusion that many people may come to. But that's just from my own personal experience. So you ask me, and there it is. That's where I stand.
You know what? I like that. I have nothing to add to that. I have nothing to add.
No.
I was like, okay, nope, he got that one. He got it all. He got it all. I don't have anything to add. I do want to read something.
Yeah, the truth of it is that there is truth to that, but it's not an absolute truth, and I think it's kind of people, like, they think they got money, so that makes them better than somebody. So it's the fake out is that people will take whatever they have, and say that's why they're wonderful or they're great or they're this or they're that. There are many folks that will do that, and then in order to make themselves great is a great, great. Oh, so, everybody that has that's great. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, well, that's used as a foil to, deflect. Well, the implication is that, well, if you don't have this, then you're not great. So, so it's the skin color. That's the easiest one to pick out. Is it you too fat, you too skinny? You live on this side of town. You live on that side. You went to this school, or you went to that other school. Oh, you got this job, I got that job. It's like one of the easiest ways to try to differentiate people. And I'm from the school that says you're more the same than different. That's come from my traveling experiences, and I'm sticking by it, man, until I meet my maker.
Right on. Oh man, stupid plastic bottle. I do have something. I want to read a couple chapters, and I want you to tell me what you think about this, or your thoughts on this. It's from page 326. Black separatists. Who are they? The simple truth is that the African people in the United States.
What page is that on?
326.
Okay, 326.
Black separatists, who are they?
Let's see, 326. Okay. So it's on the bottom?
Yes.
Oh. Now this is black separatists. Okay, so we still kind of vibing on that same thing, right?
And this is another section that I thought would be interesting considering where we are today. The simple truth is that African people in the United States and throughout the world are not and never have been separatists. In fact, perhaps this has been their weakness. They never have really hated whites, and they do not really hate whites now. What is taken for hatred when applied to blacks is their reaction against being hated, rejected, and oppressed. And the thinking, whites know this very well. When they cry racism in reverse, or reverse discrimination and reverse segregation, what they're saying in effect is that only we whites may discriminate or segregate, but not you blacks. All white organizations that exclude blacks everywhere are normal and proper from the whites' perspective, but an all black organization that excludes whites, perish the thought. Whites flee en masse from cities throughout the nation to avoid integrated schools and fair housing laws. These are the real separatists, not the blacks who never fled from the whites at all. Yet those blacks who said, let them go, let us not pursue them, let us stay where we are, stand on our own feet as men and women, and begin to build and improve our own schools and community. These, not the whites, are denounced as separatists or black nationalists.
I kind of think you're going somewhere with this. Let me guess if I might. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Are you leading into the movie?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
All right. No, I haven't. And actually, I want to see it, but I'm going to have to take time out to see it. I'm juggling a bunch of other things that, quite frankly, are more important because I believe my thought, which is kind of based on what I just said, is beyond that. I mean, I have actually met some of these, the whole Marcus Garvey, Booker T. Washington, debate. I, as a African American, have been to Africa to kind of, find out what I could find out, and travel to other places too, I can look at, the black nationalists, which is what this is talking about, and the kind of like seemingly difference of opinion between people like Malcolm X and Dr. King. So it's an ongoing thing. For me, it doesn't hold a lot of salt, because I think that it's not one or the other. I think it's a combination of the two. But I haven't seen the movie, and I got some other things that I got to take care of. And I will see the movie. I just don't know if I'm going to see it in the next couple of weeks because, there's some other things in my life that I got to take care of, which are more important than it is. I should have said that. I've been trying my best not to say that because if I wanted this to be kid friendly, okay. So cut that part out, man.
I gotta watch mine too. Letting them fly.
Cut that part out, man. Just beat that one. You know what I mean? And everybody will know what it is without saying it. But the idea is that the real test of me as a human being goes beyond me as African American or as a black man or whatever, a brown man or mixed race. So, it has to do with me and the responsibilities that I take. And we talked about this a number of sessions ago. As a man, what am I doing for myself first? Right. And then what am I doing for my family, my community, and all that kind of stuff? And I'm caught up in some things. I don't want to use the word caught up. I'm involved in some things, man, where, I'm shaping, the future.
I know.
I'm creating habits for a human being, because my daughter has asked me to, right. And I can see when I walk in the place and she looks at me and she smiles and then she starts talking to me, you see?
Right.
So we got relationship, you see? Family is more important than black or white as far as I'm concerned. And there's a couple of things that I need to kind of get straight before I check out of here, and to me, that's more important. So the short answer, that's a long answer. The shorter answer is I do plan to see the movie and, just so I can be more aware. But there's a lot of other movies that need to be seen too. I mean, that's not the only one,
We keep saying the movie, but I just want to be sure we're talking about the same movie. You're talking about Judas and the Black Messiah, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's the one that's relating to, black nationalism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Now, I have to rain on your parade.
Okay.
That movie is only running for a limited time. So, today, you have 6 days to watch it before you can never watch it. Or as far as I know, you can't watch it anymore. It's only on until...
Well, I'll keep that in mind, but I don't think I'm going to see it then. I'll see it some other kind of way. The business of media, streaming, et cetera, is that they want to create audiences. You know what I mean? And so it will be available some kind of way, and I will get to see it. It just might not be in the time frame where now we got to watch it now. I got some other things I got to take care of, but I will watch it. And when I do, I will, we'll have a conversation, won't we?
Yes, we will. So
why don't you tell us about the movie?
No.
You can't spoil it for me.
I'm not going to spoil it.
No, you can't. You can't spoil it, man. I'm telling you. I come from... Okay, well just set the thing up so that they can be motivated to watch it.
Not only this is my black movie recommendation, and I try and do a movie recommendation, a podcast recommendation, and a business recommendation. I'm going to spend a movie recommendation and a podcast recommendation on Judas and the Black Messiah because there's a companion podcast that accompanies the movie. And in the companion podcast, they do a lot of talking to Chairman Fred Jr., who was born 3 months or so, or maybe 3 weeks after his father died. And they interview Fred Hampton's wife as well. And they also interview the actors that played Fred and William O'Neill. So it's the podcast is really involved, and the podcast is where I learned that Fred Hampton had his phone tapped by the FBI as early as 14 years old. Let that one sink in. So the part that they don't tell you in the movie that I can use to set up the movie for you is Fred Hampton from a very young age was one of those people who was the protector of his family and wanted to be the protector of all of his people. And so he did a lot to ensure people equality. What got him what made the FBI start looking at him when he was in school was he organized a sit down with the blacks, the whites, and the Puerto Ricans at his school to start addressing issues within the school of racial equality. And this was the second school that he had done that at. So he basically formed an early version of the Rainbow Coalition. which is interesting because he went on to then form the Rainbow Coalition. But that's for the movie. When the movie starts, he's on his rise within the Black Panther movement. He had just left the NAACP because they were moving too slow, and they really start the movie. The movie focuses on the time period that he spent with William O'Neill, the person who set him up to be killed. So he's already got a name within the Black Panther Party, and William O'Neill is kind of just coming in. And they do a lot to focus on. They don't make them seem like friends because they weren't friends, but they make them. That's the time period that they focus on, just that 16-month period, and it's really gripping when they show William O'Neill, and how he infiltrated the Panthers and was going back and talking to the FBI agent, and it made me turn around and look at the interview that William O'Neill did. I had to watch the whole hour-long interview. It is super sad to know that he ended up committing suicide the night that thing aired. It's just the whole story, the Fred Hampton saga, William O'Neill, all of the informants that were implanted by the FBI within the Panther organization. It's a story. It's a story, and you really got to research it. But I would say start by watching the movie and listening to the podcast. That's my recommendation for the week.
Well, I'll take that recommendation, and I hope that our listening audience does also. Because there's a lot to it, and it's worth exploring from many, 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 many different perspectives. It truly is. Now, having said that, I will tell you that I did have a note close to that. It was page 327.
Okay.
Down near the bottom, maybe the first, second, the third paragraph. The thing about crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was something in several places. I think in the prior chapter, he talked about the black world at the crossroads. Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about that, man. The motherland at the crossroads, that's on page 313. Chapter 13, the black world at the crossroads, and at the crossroads on page 313. Wanted leaders and an African ideology on page 315. The Black Unity Threat on page 317. And here we are, moving on. Where are we? I lost my page.
We're at 317.
I think I went too far. See, I should have really, the little marker fell out.
Uh-oh.
327. Okay. So then it goes to reorganizing a race for action, which was intriguing to me. So as I was looking to that, wanted all prisoners to enlist. That says a lot right there, and then we get to page 327, black separatists, who are they? And then what struck me, in a fashion similar to what you were saying, and, you've thrown out some names of some leaders, they've been typecasted, as black nationalists or separatists or this or that, the whole notion of Black Panther versus, it's like they're people and they're much bigger than the titles that we throw on them or the stories that we hear about them. So I ended up on page 327. About the third paragraph down, it says the term crossroads here must be taken more seriously than a mere metaphor. For a people may teach the intersection in life where the routes cross, leading in different directions. We only know the road over which we have just come. I thought that was very significant. So at the crossroads, we must pause, uncertain. Which way now? Which way should we go? The numerous movements led by charismatic, and I underline that, charismatic leaders. I think that's very significant. But see, they're talking about the numerous movements. That's very significant.
Mm-hmm.
Led by charismatic leaders with catchy slogans to shout.
Make America
See that?
great again.
Catchy slogans to shout.
America first.
Our roads many will take, right? The biggest crowd drawing route will always be baited with some kind of religion. And he puts the word religion in quotes. Led by some prophet or some mystic. For religion, any kind of religion, has been the means by which hope was maintained by a people without any basis for hope. Now, I believe in God. I believe God. You say you're an atheist. I say I'm not. But yet, we still overlap with each other. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So here it's interesting that Chancellor would say something about religion of any kind, has been the means by which hope was maintained, But then he goes on to say, and I think it's pretty deep, people without any basis for hope, and there's truth to that. There's something on PBS right now about the Black church. Like, you want people to watch, the movie. I want people to watch the Black church because it deals. And it goes back pretty far and it has a lot of interesting things to say about the Black church. Good things and bad things, And then it goes on to say in that same paragraph, and the search for real leaders has always been so desperate that the people flock to this or that promoters movement, hoping that a true leader has been found. And then it goes on to talk about the personal wealth, and that's a whole nother conversation. The point that I want to make is charismatics. I think that is a very good thing as we try to study all this stuff. Our people get drawn to charismatics. They can be the entertainers, the pretty people, the good-looking people. You know what I mean?
Everyone thinks rich.
They can be the big mouths, that are talking and saying all this kind of stuff. They could be the guys that say, yeah, we can do this. And that includes, people that are in any group. You see? Now I'm down with the Black Lives Matter. I think I understand what all that means. I'm not protesting in the way that they are protesting, yet I realize that they need to protest. I've already been through that about 3 or 4 times. I got something else on my mind that I need to do, but I'm not not supporting them. I just think that if you're going to be, out there, making the noise and, demonstrating and protesting, and that's an important part of it. But there's other parts that have to come with it too. You see, like I've said, and I've said this many times. I said it on our episodes here. Boycott. Protest. Right. So that's a whole big piece of it. But in addition to that, you also have to vote. You see, and that's a big piece of it. But then you also have to boycott. And when you do those things, I think you go a lot farther than if you do any one of them all by themselves. And now, as I've become more educated, because I've been looking at, a lot of the stuff over the last so many years, and we can go back to the wisdom of former President Barack Obama with the healthcare thing, looking at the healthcare situation we're in now, and look at who was trying to stop the healthcare from being put out, where these same people in Congress had government-sponsored healthcare. But they don't want it to be for the people. That says a lot about who they are, So now we need to be up in their face and we need to be telling them what we want. And so if we're going to go out and do revolution like some of these guys are saying, but the Black nationalists, they're at the point where they say, well, we got to take like physical action, like violent action. Actually, I agree. But before I do that, we got to protest, yes. Right? We have to vote.
Necessary.
Yeah. We have to boycott, which might be the strongest of the three. But there's one more thing we got to do. We got to lobby. which basically means we got to be up in the faces of these people in their offices, in the lobbies of their offices, and we need to be telling what we want, and we need to be telling them, look, this is what we want. Don't complain a lot, because in our Black community, people complain a lot.
Yeah.
I said, this is what we want. You don't have to be tearing stuff down, burning stuff up, and all that kind of stuff. But you got to tell them what you want. And if you don't give us this, then we need to vote you out. And see, that's why I personally think that there are many who are, trying to change the voting laws. All of a sudden, because there's been a Black president, the vote is wrong. I think I know why, but that's another conversation. And then we have the others who are the suppressionists, voter suppression. They want to change the laws and make it difficult for vote. I feel for the people that live in places like, you pick the state. Okay, I'll pick the state. Texas.
Anyone south of the Mason-Dixie line?
Yeah. Georgia, Mississippi. I feel for them, man, because in order for them to vote, in order to be able to maintain that political pressure, on the system, now their lives are at stake.
Yes.
But they were always at stake.
Yes.
You see? Like when they didn't vote, they were in trouble. They were being threatened, and we have done episodes on that stuff.
Yes.
We go back to, and that's why I applaud you as you kind of pulled me into it, and I didn't really want to talk about it, but Dr. Joy got some, Uncommon got some, this is kind of heavy here, think about it. We've tried to examine, just like Chancellor Williams is, we're trying to come up with some explanation, some kind of understanding about things that have happened before us. Right. And if we don't do that, then we're just going to be going for the okie doke by as I said when I first started my ramblings, the charismatics, the folks that like they say something and it kind of, oh yeah, and they click, and now you be marching behind them, without understanding fully who they are, what they're trying to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I think that was too long.
No, you good. All right. Well, we are running late. And I know you have to get up early. I also have to get up early. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's true.
I do want to ask you, what were your final thoughts on the book?
On the book?
Yes.
The final thoughts?
Yes.
I was impressed about it when I first read about it. I've been impressed about it ever since. I put little pieces of paper in several other pages that came after the one I just read. So the liberation of our minds. This is task number 1. That's on page 331, people. I think that's it. So he's gone from the past, 4500 BC to the present, and he stopped at 2000 AD because that's what was in the scope of his work here, but here we are, 2020, and there's still stuff that's relevant, and then in the last chapter 15, he talks about the shape of things to come, and he lays out a master plan. Now, whether the man was right or wrong, it don't really matter. He dealt with so many issues, that are worth our consideration. I think this is a book that should be in every thinking Black person's library. He's examining things from the information that he's put together. And was it you that said he did it over about 16 years worth of African studies, Black studies? And,
16 years.
Yeah, how do you put that into 300 some odd pages of book, man? That's like a lifetime's worth of work, and for that he needs to be applauded, and for that I will always call him Dr. Chancellor Williams.
I agree. It's so much. It's so much, and you were right. You said something earlier in this show, and I'm well aware of it. I'm just okay with it. For the listening audience, for those of you who haven't picked up this book or who are not aware of the contents of this book, We've only covered the first half of the book. There's so much in this book. My my final thoughts on this book are, well, this is one of the most important, informational, and honestly fulfilling books that I've ever come across. I've never picked up something that had so much substance in it. You know what I mean? It this book,
Yeah.
it's hard to put down, but at the same time, for me, it was also hard to pick up because it sent me on so many tangents where I kept having to come back to the book and read a little bit and then go off and research and then read a little bit and go back, and it because that's how I read books, you know. But there's so much substance in this book. I'm gonna have to read this book at least another 3 times, and that's not because it's a difficult read. That's because there's so much information in it, and are if you're a reader, you know that you're not going to get it all the first time. If you're somebody who reads books, you know that you're always going to pick up something that you missed the first time when you read it the second time. And if you read it the third time, you'll pick up something else or you'll get a better understanding. And I personally feel that for me personally to fully grasp everything in this book, I'm going to have to read it, like I said, at least 3 more times. At least.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm there. I'm right there with you, man. You know, yeah, I truly am. I think in the bibliography back there, I don't know how many pages it is, but you know, you can look at the bibliography, and each one of those are sources that he has decided to include in it, and probably each one of them is worth reading as well. But you know, it gets to the point where you be reading all the time. You know, I mean, this is a pearl of wisdom that it's. I think it opens up the mind to a lot of things, and you know, the truth is, as you know, kind of see it, you know. So, I applaud, always have, and will continue to applaud the effort that he put forth in this. And actually, you know, the one that I had originally, I think said, great issues of a race. Well, you know, the destruction of black civilization, great issues of a race from, I believe it was from 2000 BC to 2000 AD. Yeah, I think that was the first edition in the 70s.
Yeah, and then on the second one, he added. Remember how we talked about how he wrote this? This was supposed to be 3 books initially.
Yeah,
I believe 1 book got added to it to make it 3 books. I think that's why you got the original one you got said 2000.
That's right. That's right.
It would make sense.
And there's a and you might want to talk about the bookstore, you know, the library. I mean, there's about what'd you say about like about 100 books in there, and there are many I have not read. There's some that I have read, but they are equally I don't want to use the word awesome because it's like awe. You're like we're afraid of something. They're mind expanding. They're conscious building.
Yes.
You know, and then when you hear these fools like, you know, the insurrectionists or senators or Supreme Court justices, you know, or politicians or business people or influencers, you know, when you hear them talking, you know, it's you know, BS. You know, because you got minds that go a lot deeper. You know, they say something that kind of feels good, sounds good. You know, and you kind of like, oh, yeah. Now you just be, you know, jumping around to their, you know, their drum, their story, their song. without looking deep. I know how to say it. I call it simple think, and I hate to say it that way because nobody wants to be called simple. But I mean it from the standpoint of like complex as versus simple. Simple is like one, maybe two, maybe three, But then you got complex, which is more than that. It's like multifold, like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 100, whatever. The simple, like one kind of thought is the thing that I think tricks a lot of people up. And I think that's the, I know how to say it. I know how to say it. Everybody has heard because it's been said so many times. That's the propaganda move. It's said over and over and over and over and over and over. It was done in Germany before the Second World War. And the minister of propaganda said one of the basic rules was just keep saying it. The repetition is what makes it become true for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, and I think he's right about that for the simple thinking kind of person, and that includes me. You kind of like get hooked into it because it sounds good for whatever reason you think, or it's going to give you something that you think or it's going to do something that but like you got to dig a little deeper, which is like what that swamp lady said in the Princess and the Frog. You got to dig a little deeper. And when I heard that, I said, "Whoa, wait a minute! Some of these cartoons got some stuff going on in it." And it's true because the people that write movies and write, and that includes cartoons, which are very high production level. The songs, the scores, the actings, the voiceovers, the animations, the special effects. It's like a concert or a Broadway show, that's done, in the format of animation, and she tells the Princess and the Frog, she tells her, you got to dig a little deeper. Money ain't got no heart. Money ain't got no soul. And I said, woo. Now that sounds true to me. And I think that's what people need to do. Dr. Chancellor Williams is one of those people that kind of, dug deep enough to be able to give us something that, has stood the test of time. I applaud him for that.
100%. I'm gonna this book definitely added quite a bit of, it filled in a lot of gaps. It added a lot of information, new information, but it also confirmed some things that I believed prior, and it also changed a couple things. There were a few misnomers that I was correct, that this book corrected for me, and really gave me a more cohesive idea of the history of Africa. Because a lot of people, have this idea that, or they say things like, well, Africans, they sell this into slavery. And I've heard stuff like this. Oh, they sell this into slavery and they're over there doing their thing. And then you think about it and you're like, do you know the history of Africa? Like, what happened there after you should read a book. You should read the book.
Yeah, it's true.
You should read the book. I got one for you, but they won't read it. So that's the purpose of the podcast. But I do want to give a shout out. I want to talk about Renee and our book distributor. If you are looking for this book or any number of titles written by Black authors, we have a book distributor who, if she does not have that book, she can get that book. You can locate her at shadesofafrica.com. And if you shop there and you should use the promo code Uncommon Sense at checkout, and you'll get 10% off. That's Uncommon Sense, spelled Uncommon. Just use Uncommon. UNCOMMON. And I think that's going to be it. Did you have any other thoughts?
Yeah. I guess I do. I want to hear from folks. They need to go care of And Uncommon gives every time we finish this thing, he gives a way to contact us. We really do want to hear your thoughts as well, because we realize that we have our own biases and shortcomings, and we're not afraid to admit it. But we'd like to hear what what you got to say. Was it meaningful? Was it not? Do you think we're right? Do you think we're wrong? What's the basis for whatever you think? And if you write to us, we'll read it on the air. And quite frankly, we have a few folks that are going to be coming on the show who, going to add their 2 cents,
Right.
their point of view as well. Several people actually, and that's to be announced. So to be announced. That's like TBA, right?
Right.
And we'll let you know. But in the meantime, contact us, write us, because we're living in times where the communication is one of the potential solutions to many of the successes we seek.
And do me a favor. If you listen to us, you like the show, we like making them for you guys. Leave a review. Leave us a review. Leave us. You've already subscribed. Hopefully you've already gave us a like. Leave a review because it helps the algorithm send the show out to more people. And that's all I got to say about that. If you would like to contact us, you can contact me at wellreadblackman@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me. I'm at Uncommon Sense on TikTok. I'm also at Uncommon Sense on Instagram, but I'm very rarely on there because I hate social media. Also, another very, very good way to contact me, and this is the one that I hope you guys all do, is hit me up on Words with Friends. I'm looking for people to play right now, and I do answer comments. So I'm always on Words with Friends. I know it's not social media, but that's my favorite thing about it. You know what Words with Friends is?
Yes.
Yeah, that's my I love Words with Friends. All right, ladies and gents, I'm gonna read this little passage while we roll out of here. This will be it for us. All right, and this is I just decided to let Dr. Chancellor take us out the way only Dr. Chancellor can. So this is page 360, and this is the last page of the book before the biographical notes. All talk about quote unquote black power is empty until we begin to make black power a reality in the only way it can be done, and that is by building step by step a race organization that is so great that it will not only be the voice of a united people, but will carry on efficiently an economic development program to assist their advance on all other fronts. The Organization for Unity plan, all caps, presented in this chapter is an effort to make an answer to the question, quote, which way you still enshackled blacks, unquote. To answer in specific terms and in some detail, it sets forth rather clearly one way out. It will be simply great if someone comes up with an even better plan for racial unity through action. Whatever is proposed must be by a grand design. Nothing else will serve. It must be bold, daring, an effort of unheard of audacity by blacks, and one that will bring forth the enemy scream upon quote unquote utopian or quote unquote too unrealistic or just another grandiose dream, also in quotes. This enemy, and let us not forget it for a single minute, is deeply entrenched within the race as well as the outside. This means that we must face up to the fact that we have problems of a kind and obstacles to overcome which no other people have. The task we will now face will test this genius of the black race. The blacks in the United States are in the best position as a lead-off example for the rest of the African race. For such a movement would further change the course of history and inspire black youths everywhere, along with their elders, with a new vision and a sense of direction and a kind of outlook that gives meaning to the study as the course of inventions and new discoveries. The challenge to blacks on this continent is to overcome the centuries of their own American version of tribalism and disunity. It is their greatest challenge in this area of perpetual crisis. They will accept it I'm sorry, cut that out, G. They will accept it if they have come to understand at last that equal rights and equal justice will never come from the appeals to the mighty and granted as an act of grace, but only from their own position of power and influence, which developed from a united people engaged in great and vast undertakings of their own. If we fail to accept this challenge at this critical turning point in our history, we will have proved ourselves unworthy of having any descendants, and our very names should be forgotten by them or cursed by the furthest generation. And those are powerful words to end the book.